we are talking about The Expanse, the video game, Netflix Unknown, I didn't spell it right, and Evil Dead Rise. And now your host, Mike Indiglio.
Netflix. What is up, everybody? Welcome to K&M Geekly. Just a sneak peek at two geeks talking about some of the stuff getting them through their week, spelling things wrong. I'm Mike Indiglio.
Doing it fast.
Doing it on the fly. I'm Mike Indiglio. This is my co-host, my good buddy, Keith Varney. Keith, and there is CEO Jen bringing a nice coffee. Keith, my cup runneth over.
It sure does.
It really is. We talk about it every week, but get yourself a CEO Jen if you got the option.
I mean, like, I'm working on it, but you know,
right.
not a lot of them walk to the basement.
Sweet. So listen, last week you'll know my weekly rad was a podcast about Full House, which Dave Coulier, poor guy, he just launched the podcast and he just announced they're pausing it in order to kind of comport with the writer's strikes and apparently like rewatch shows, which we do too. There's a gray area there, but all the shows we do, I think, have wrapped production. Whatever. But the point of that podcast was that the Full House and TGIF and the certain television properties from your nostalgic past hold a little bit of space in your heart, Keith. Right?
Sure.
Mean something to you because of what
that's
you're
our
going
entire
through.
channel.
Growing up, and that's what we say. Don't let anybody yuck your yum. Your show might be a different thing. It doesn't matter what it is. The things that are important to you, they're important to you. That's what's important. And I would be remiss on this channel if I didn't mention the passing announced today. I don't even know if you heard it, Keith, but Paul Reubens, Pee Wee Herman died.
Oh no!
Yeah, at 70 years old. It just dropped today, this news.
That's crazy. I did not know that. Ooh, that's sad.
I'm going to go ahead and read the message from his people. Last night, we said farewell to Paul Reubens, an iconic American actor, comedian, writer, and producer whose beloved character Pee Wee Herman delighted generations of children and adults with his positivity, whimsy, love that word, and belief in the importance of kindness. Paul bravely and privately fought cancer for years with his trademark tenacity and wit. A gifted and prolific talent, he will forever live in the comedy pantheon in our hearts as a treasured friend and a man of remarkable character and generosity of spirit. It also included a personal quote from Reubens, so apparently this was, I don't want to speculate, but clearly it was a journey that they knew was coming to an end.
Right.
And Paul wrote, "Please accept my apology for not going public with what I've been facing for the last 6 years. I have always felt a huge amount of love and respect from my friends, fans, and supporters. I have loved you all so much and enjoyed making art for you," his message read. The post concluded with a request for any condolences to be made in honor of Reubens' late parents, Judy and Milton Rubenfield, Stand Up to Cancer, and or any other organization that benefits dementia and Alzheimer's research. So, that said, I thought I'd just leave a little space here today, this morning, to just mention what his work meant to me, and then I'll open the floor to you, Keith, if you have any. I will say that, you know, a great part of my comedic sensibility is improvisational, is the appreciation of whimsy, as it said in that comment there, and also the appreciation of absurdist, abstract comedy, which often is not understood or can be confounding. In fact, Pee Wee Herman to people who does not strike a chord for, can just be kind of seen as hysteric or annoying. But as a kid who was a little weird, I appreciated the Pee Wee character because he was unabashedly weird and abstract, and his universe was not tidy or structured. It was kind of crazy and colorful, and the characters you met on the show, there was never rules, rhymes, or reasons, but somehow that chaos had a sense of family, had a sense of belonging to all of us. He spoke to us. He did not condescend. It was just a magical place. And then the movies, the Tim Burton movie, the original, especially that first one, Pee-wee's Adventure, Pee-wee's
Great Adventure,
Big Adventure, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. All the subsequent ones, but that first one really just blew my mind as a comedic work. And so and then of course his late work on, I think it was Everybody Loves Raymond as Robert's brother-in-law, some great stuff. Anyway, I loved And even the latest Netflix he did with Joe Manganiello was crazy funny. So I've always been a Pee-wee fan. It just sits a huge, that ABC show sits as like such a iconic period of my upbringing and when I was developing my sensibility. So a great loss there. I also have I also have lost friends and family to cancer, and so I support that call for donations. So we'll put a link to Stand Up to Cancer in the bio here if you are touched and want to moved, do so. But anyway, Keith, you want to talk how did you know Pee-wee?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the only property I would add is Buffy the Vampire, the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer, was sort of an iconic one for me. Yeah, I mean, like I didn't have, I mean, I certainly watched all of it, and I didn't watch it religiously, but I will say that Pee-wee's Playhouse and the sort of absurdity and the chaoticness of it, I think is it really well represented a child's mind. I mean, with like the sort of like ADD and the explosions of ideas and thoughts and feelings, and it was really just I think a very, very well depicted concept of how a kid thinks and how a kid operates in the world, and it's like he encapsulated 6, 7, 8 really well, and then I think about artists who do that well. Stephen King does that for like 13 really well, 10 to 13. And so yeah, that's good. It's sad to hear. I didn't know he was that he went young, but also I had no idea he was 70. That's crazy.
Yeah, and was able to continue to. And also, like, some people choose to wear that struggle publicly to bring attention, and some people choose to do it privately. And I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way. No one is less.
Everybody should feel righteous and doing that exactly how they care to.
Yeah, I've always felt, I don't want to go on a tangent here. I'll just say I've always felt that I am a cancer survivor, or I battled cancer. I don't always love that, because it insinuates that people who have passed away lost a battle or were not as good a warrior, and it's just not. It's just not that way. So I think our hearts and prayers, feelings, thoughts, and everything, energy goes out to anybody dealing with, has dealt with. Everyone has been affected. So, yeah, sorry to grand voyage to you, Paul. That's what we'll say. Okay. There you go. So that's our start. But in the honor of creativity and comedy, Keith, I didn't want to start with this one, but I wanted to talk this week a little bit about a new video game I played. And, I want to give a little background on it. It's a Telltale Games adventure, and it is on the property The Expanse, which is a sci-fi property I knew absolutely nothing about. Do you watch The Expanse, Keith? Have you read the books? It is a book, right?
I don't know. I know it was an Amazon show. I have never seen it, but my understanding is it's pretty good.
It definitely, yes. It was originally books by James Corey, and then there is, I think, a Netflix. There is this is how much we know about it. I've definitely heard it tossed around. It's a prestige show, I know. I've heard mixed things about it, but point of the story is I know nothing about it. But as we've talked on the channel, and obviously our whole channel, I love sci-fi. I love space exploration. I like space exploration games. And what I really love, Keith, is Telltale Games. Now, Telltale Games started, I guess, early 2000s is my remembering. And their first series that I played was The Walking Dead. All right, they did an original property of The Walking Dead before The Walking Dead had spun off into a million things. All right, this was just when the show and the comics were running still. And it followed a character, Lee, and this young girl that another traveler he comes upon, Clementine. They go on an adventure together, Keith. And it's the Telltale Games' whole thing was basically point-and-click adventure, episodic, and your choices were not binary. There were multiple choices, some giant ones, some little ones, but they would culminate in your story by the end of the 5 episodes could be radically different ending-wise and world-wise than a friend who played the game. And it does that cool thing. They kind of started this thing where at the end of each adventure, it would break down each choice and also where you stood against everybody else who played the game.
Oh, interesting.
Right? I loved it. At the end of that Walking Dead series, I was weeping. And I love, you know me, I love something that'll make me cry.
You sure
because
do.
the choice, I had to live with the consequences of those choices.
Right.
So after that, Telltale also did a Sam and Max adventure. So if you're an old school PC gamer from way back in the day, you know Sam and Max are. That was pretty great. They also did a Batman, the Telltale series, which was pretty good. They did Wolf Among Us, pretty good. And then because of the way the games industry has gone, people go on to do different things, money is cut, Telltale basically went bye-bye into the great beyond. But some of the original people have come back. They've kind of relaunched Telltale, and we have their first new release in a while with the old gang back again in their kind of new orientation with The Expanse, a Telltale series, and they're going back to the drawing board. It's made in collaboration with Deck 9 Games, 5 episodes. They're going to be released. The first episode came out this past week, and then through September, so through the rest of the summer, we've got the rest of the 5 episodes. What's cool is that they're never more than like 2-3 hours at the most. So it's compact, you can bite off with usually 1 or 2 sittings. So I decided, heck, I'm going to do it. Now, the other thing I will point out in this land of gaming, it is a full-priced, $45 thing. So you don't just like buy episode 1 and see if you like it, at least not yet. Down the road, after they're all released, I think you'll probably be able to pip and pop on like mobile or whatever they else do. But I got it on PC. I bought the whole thing, and I played episode 1. And first thing to note is that if you're a patron of our channel, Keith, patreon.com/KandM, my whole playthrough is already up there. All right. So you probably already know what I think because you might have watched it. If you want to join on that bandwagon, you can join our Patreon, patreon.com/KandM. It's going to drop on the YouTube channel as well because I'm just going to do that. So that said, I was skeptical about how much they could possibly show me in this 1 hour. And I have to say, I'm loving what I'm seeing so far. You might have seen on the channel, Keith and I started to play the very Telltale-esque Star Trek Resurgence, which we will get back to at some point.
We have to finish that, yeah.
But aside from really pretty cool, compelling world building and just experiential gameplay, it was a little janky around the edges. The animations were a little janky. The whole kind of vibe was a little janky, which is fine. Keith and I were not deterred by that, but it does. And Telltale has been known to be a little janky back in the day. They have polished their engine. It runs great. The sound design is great. The animations are great. They're so much better than the screenshot below, actually. That's not a good indication of the character models. So you're basically introduced to this number 1, a commanding officer of this ship, the Artemis, and it starts with you putting the captain of the ship. This is the first shot you see, Captain Cox, putting him into the airlock and potentially hitting the button to jettison him into space. Okay, and I'm like, okay, this is a banger. This is how we're starting. You then flash back and you kind of see that we are working on a salvage ship. So, we go out to derelict space stations or different things and we grab scrap, okay? We meet the cast, we meet the crew. There's about 4 people on the crew. We meet them. They each have their stories. We kind of do little things we have little interactions to see how our relationships with those people are going to be. So you might help this guy out. You might not help him out. That'll affect how he responds with you later. The first episode is about 1 hour and 15 minutes. And I have to say, by the end of it, knowing nothing about the grand world of The Expanse, I'm in on these characters. Our XO here, she is a badass, right? I don't want to say an anti-hero, but just not taking crap from anybody. She's on the lam. There's a bounty on her head for something. We don't know what has happened. And there are consequential choices that matter, Keith.
Yeah.
Should I kill this person or just cut off their leg? Should I do this that could affect this, or should I blow this thing up? And then, of course, we got to make the decision on what we're going to do with the guy that happens in the first couple seconds. So lots of big choices to make very quickly. And we're forced into some interactions and to high-stress situations that make us learn about our cast and crew. I'm really excited. The next episode's going to drop in August. If for anybody who's even tangentially interested, I think you should check it out. I wish there was a demo, like you could just play episode 1, so that if you're not in after that hour, just kind of bounce. But I guess they gotta make their money, right? So if you don't know if you want to buy it, why don't you just pop over to Patreon? Check it out and check me playing it, or it'll be here on YouTube as well. We'll give our patrons a week or two advance before I drop it publicly.
That's
but
true. Our Patreon's way cheaper than $45.
That is very true. It's next to nothing, though we like to reward, just whatever. Patreon's cool. YouTube takes all your money, so it's the only shot you have. I really liked it. I don't know if it's interested in me in watching the show, but by the end of episode 5, we'll see. We'll see how that charts. I've got a lot of Star Trek to watch, so it's hard to...
We have so much Trek to watch. Yeah,
but mostly, I'm really excited about Telltale being back. I know that they have a couple of other things on the horizon. For one, Wolf Among Us Season 2, finally, which was awesome. And so, welcome back, Telltale. I hope people buy the game or at least check it out and stream it and stuff so that they keep making games. The Expanse, Keith, cool world, I gotta say. That's Season 1 of The Expanse, and I was digging it.
All right. Well, my understanding is that it's a good show. I just, I have a lot of Trek to watch too, so I have to get through there. Yeah. Well,
but Keith, if I was enjoying the dark tone of The Expanse and wanted something even darker, where do you think I could go?
Oh, what a good transition. So this week I want to talk about Evil Dead Rise.
Oh.
Which is it's a continuation of the Evil Dead series.
Keith, can I point out? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
yes.
this is the last time I'm going to mention it. That is a transparent PNG of that scary woman's face.
Is it?
Photoshop just made the rest.
Just finish the rest of that. Wow. Wow. Yeah. No, it's creepy. AI is coming for all of us. We're all toast. Anyway, none of us will have jobs.
Where'd you stream this?
It was on HBO. No, I'm sorry. It was on
Max.
Now. No, it's not even Max anymore. It's just Now.
No, incorrect.
Max. Max. Whatever. Who cares?
You know what? Now might be better.
That's right. Whatever it is, who cares? So HBO Max, or just Max. So it's a continuation of the Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell series, of course, which was a rite of passage for people our age. Like our older brothers would show us the Evil Dead trilogy. We'd watch it all in one night. I remember, the first one is such a fascinating film because it was, Sam Raimi had, I forget what movie he'd put out, and he got savaged by the critics, and he was so mad that he's like, I'm going to make a movie to punish everybody watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, demons in the cabin in the woods sort of a deal. And the movie is just savage and brutal to the point of being absolutely ridiculous. And then they continued. They're like, oh, wait, it's actually kind of funny. And so Evil Dead 2, which is a continuation of it, is a full-on comedy. And then 3 goes off into Crazy Worlds. And then they did sort of a reboot 10 years ago that didn't really go anywhere. So this is sort of a kind of a reboot, kind of a continuation of the original series. Now, I really enjoyed starting with the second one, because I was like, I don't know, I was 14 or whatever when I saw the first one. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I could watch 3 of these.
Mm-hmm.
But then once the second one started, it was like, oh, this is really fun and really hilarious, and Bruce Campbell is a national treasure. And Sam Raimi went on to direct many things, including the first 2 Spider-Man movies. Like, he's a big giant director now, but it was super low budget, super fly by night operation there. So this movie is interesting. It's written and directed by Lee Cronin, who I think is an Irish young director, and Bruce Campbell is not in it, sadly. They also did so this property, they did a series on Starz with Bruce Campbell, continuing it recently. Continuing the sort of comedic tone. And there was also a musical off Broadway about 15, 20 years ago.
It's done a lot regionally. I'm sure you can find it. Usually around Halloween time.
Did you see it? Did you see it?
No, I've seen clips because my buddy John did it once, but I've never seen it in its full. I'm sure it was great.
I did go see it. It was really fun. So the property's been around for a long time. And so this movie Jill and I like watching horror films, and yes, you can still watch horror films with your ex-spouse. It's still fun.
More fun, maybe?
In some ways, yeah,
Mhm.
super fun. And so tonally, it's not a comedy like a lot of the, I know that the reboot about 10, 15 years ago was a little bit sort of halfway in between. This was, it gets to be absurd by the end, but it doesn't sit in the sort of slapstick of it all. And I believe it was originally designed to be a Now Max, HBO, whatever the hell it is, exclusive. But
It had a
the
theatrical
screenings,
release, though. Yeah.
yeah, the initial screenings were so good, they decided to release it as in theaters, and it ended up making a ton of money. So I found it very enjoyable. Is it great? No, I mean it's not like some legendary thing, but they had some.
You can't be here. Yeah.
I think the K&M channel is now basically just Keith and Mike fighting with their cats.
Our vet straight up was like, your cat's too fat.
Yeah, he's getting up there. My vet said the same thing about me. But the anyway, but it ended up being very successful, and it has some great performances. The woman we see here, Alyssa Sutherland, who spends most of the movie as a possessed demon doing all sorts of crazy stuff, is terrific. It's really fun. There isn't really much of a plot.
Mm-hmm.
And there never really is in Evil Dead. Like, it's not really a story about like, oh, here's A to B to C of the story and we're going on this great journey. It's just like, oh God, there are these horrific demons who have taken over people, spraying blood at us. What are we going to do? But I think I could have used a little bit more comedy, but the end was incredibly cool and satisfying, even though we knew the final kill was kind of obvious because they showed it ahead of time. What they create, I don't quite want to give it away, but there's some sort of like a body part bolus demon monster at the end, which I thought was really inventive and fun, and we had a really good time. Like, it's not going to like blow your mind, but if you're looking for an Evil Dead savage demon, I think they used 1,700 gallons of blood in the movie, and super fun. And I got to say, Lee Cronin has a lot of talent as a horror director. Was able to do a great deal with a tiny budget. It's only $12 million budget, and able to stretch that very effectively to make it seem like a much bigger, more expensive movie than it was.
Yeah, when it comes to horror type films, there are only two that there are two types that I generally will see. I'm not drawn to the horror genre as much as you, Keith, but the two types I like are, one, if I'm going to go to a horror movie, I want it to like psychologically ruin me. So like in the scares department, I think I mentioned on the channel, that new Exorcist trailer, really, it made me close my eyes watching the trailer. So I was like, okay, this I'm going to see. And then anything that you could label as fun, right? So from B horror to this type of experience, and you kept using the word fun. So I think I could be drawn to I love the original Evil Deads. I haven't checked in since the reboot.
Yeah. No, I mean this, and this is, it's very inventive, very like monstrous and horrible, and don't worry, the chainsaw appears by the end.
Nice. It's really all that really matters.
Yeah, that's all that really matters. Mike, have you seen The Descent?
I was about to say yes, but now upon review, I'm not sure I have.
It's about like this group of women going spelunking in caves.
No, I heard the review on Slash Film. I have not seen it.
Oh yeah, I don't know why this movie. I guess because it was another like horror film, super low budget, done by very talented people. I saw the Descent in theaters, and it scared the bejesus out of me before the monsters.
Okay.
Because it has some of the most intense spelunking cave scenes I have ever, I was literally just like shaking in fear from the claustrophobia of it all. Such a good movie.
The Exorcist is one of those movies I saw too early in my fundamental, and it's funny because to this day, Keith and I speak often. We're not particularly religious folks. Keith's not religious at all. But I am not particularly.
If you're raised Catholic, Exorcist hits differently.
Well, that's the thing. Like, even even in my adulthood with my formed opinions, I don't really believe I'm going to go into the bathroom at night and get possessed by demons, but it still scares the living hell out of me.
It's not out of the question.
No! And that's the thing. Like, it's completely out of my control. All right.
Hilarious.
So going from dark fiction, now we'll go, or dark, I want to go back, bounce over to dark nonfiction. So Netflix has a series of documentary films that are being combined under the unknown sort of header here. And I think at this point they've all been released. A series of 4 films: Cave of Bones, Killer Robots, Cosmic Time Machine, The Lost Pyramid. And Keith, I love me some nonfiction. I love me some documentaries. And I've spoke on the channel. I've been critical of Netflix, kind of following a sort of rote formula for their documentaries lately, but I like to give them praise when they've done a good job. And in this case, these are pretty good, I have to say. They're about an hour, a little over an hour each by a different director, each with a different subject matter. And they're kind of dealing with scientific discoveries that are either breaking or future things that are going to necessitate us putting a lot of resources into the study. So I started with Unknown Cave of Bones. And this one really captured me because the premise is so interesting. So the abstract is this. We have a really pretty strong scientific understanding of how we evolved, the Homo sapien branch. And what I didn't know is that along the way, there are a ton of other branches of the Homo genus that aren't particularly related to us, right? They branched off in a different way, and they didn't have, and normally how we kind of gauge a lot of this, to oversimplify, hey, Charlie, is the size of our brains, right? So there's this one species, Homo naledi, which happened hundreds of thousands of years before we popped in, right? And the things you would expect from something a species this far back, was that they wouldn't use tools and they wouldn't have organized culture. And in this case, we're talking about funeral stuff, right?
Oh, interesting.
Whereas, sometimes like elephants or like animals will put all their dead carcasses in a place where they'll like put them over there. But that's different than like a ritualized burial.
Ritual mourning. Yeah.
And so they found this cave and they found bones that appear to be buried and remnants of fire. And then they started looking abstractly at like the gauntlet that these species would have to like travel to actually get to this place in order to bury the bones there. So scientists initially had just like laughed them off. It's way too early. They wouldn't have the tools to do it. They wouldn't have had this to do it. But there have been some recent documentaries in this one specific cave that are starting to point towards, they think it's ritualized burial, and they're making their case in this film. I wouldn't say that the science is strong to be presenting papers on it just yet, is how it seems, because there seems to be a lot of speculative nature in this. But the documentary does a really great job in showing, if it is this, right, what they think, what would that mean about our understanding of what it is to be human? If some of the fundamental things we think is just for us was being done by other species, which in juxtaposition to what we're learning about potentially with extraterrestrial life, really puts us in a cosmic focus that I think is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I find stuff like that fascinating because, realizing that we are, branched from 10 million other things over a billion years, like it's really interesting to see all the what ifs, all the other possible timelines, all the other possible ways that we could have evolved, and how little we do know still about all of it.
I popped over to the Lost Pyramid next. This is about this pyramid that they think existed there and what could have. It's very speculative, and it wasn't striking for me, so I bounced off. I don't know if it might get better, but I bounced off of it. I went over to Killer Robots, which is pretty good. It takes a more grounded approach that I appreciate. Keith, you could tell we did it this episode already. A lot of people see a dark future of AI and how it's going to destroy us all and kill us all. But there are actually people and scientists who are working on this right now. And so this documentary goes into some military uses and weapons that are being built using AI currently, as well as some other things. And it also has a lot of interviews and is focusing on the people whose job it is to create the fail safes to
guardrails
to protect us from these things kind of becoming sentient and taking over and stuff. And the basics come down to there's two general types of AI, right? Focused AI, which is basically everything we have, which is something that can do one task better than we could ever do because it's all of its processing there. And then the thing that is developing, which is generalized AI, when an AI can do a lot of things really well and then start making those systems work together and then create their own systems. And then that's when things get a little scary. But this is a little more focused and it's a pretty good documentary. But Keith, the crown jewel of them all, my favorite, and if I had to pick one to recommend to you, dear viewer, it's Unknown Cosmic Time Machine, the James Webb Space Telescope. If you don't know much about it, you can take your Hubble and throw it in the trash, all right? Because the new GPUs are out. This thing is using infrared light. It is looking out to the beginnings of time, right, of our observable universe, and just discovery after discovery after discovery in beautiful high res, folks. But how this documentary's approach is this is the hardest thing we've ever done as far as space technology. 344 points of failure, Keith. Mission critical points of failure, which means these are independent systems, right? So if any one of these 344 things goes wrong, the whole billions and billions of dollars of mission is over. We cannot correct it. We cannot fix it. We can't go up like Hubble and spit shine it and make it work. 344 mission critical points of failure. And this goes through all of them. And the people whose job it was to be stressed out about it for 25 years. Right?
Yeah.
And it goes through, and what I love is something that puts you through all of the tension, but you know that it works at the end. That's my favorite type of documentary
like
because
Apollo 13.
I don't have to be that stressed out. I can know it's going to be okay. And it's just when you the whole thing is technologically brilliant, but they really focus on all the ways it could have broken. And it is an absolute miracle that this thing is doing what it's doing. And then you get to the end and it speculates on all of the things we're probably going to learn from it. And we nailed it so much. You want to talk about competency porn. This is the thing for you. So I absolutely loved this documentary. It's an hour and 10 minutes. Unknown Cosmic Time Machine, Keith. High recommend. They're all good, but this is the one.
Nice. Well, I mean, being able to use the speed of light being what it is to at least be able to clearly and actually see the past is really fascinating to me.
It is time travel, right?
Because like if we could zip that thing out and we could fasten the speed of light going going away from us, we could literally see ourselves walking backwards and see all of our history. It's so cool.
That's nuts. All right, so Keith, like we do every week, I think this would be a good chance to talk a little Weekly Rad. And I'm going to let you go first, buddy.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I've been enjoying this week. It's here in New Jersey, and it's been too hot and too sunny, but we've actually been getting rain this summer so far. That's the last rain I'll get through October now because I said that.
Mm-hmm.
But
the humidity's gone away, though. It's nice out.
All right, well, we've ruined that, too. We're going to be all underwater. But somehow it'll still be a drought. But I've been really enjoying watching my garden grow. Because apparently it is wick, and we planted pumpkins this year, and so it's been really fun to watch the pumpkins grow. I have a big orange one that I've been watching. There was one that was growing on the fence. It climbed up to the top of the fence between our house and the next house, and it grew a little pumpkin. Then the pumpkin fell, and I thought it was dead, but it's not. It's fine now. It's grown great back down on the ground. Really fun. Harvested some potatoes.
Keith.
Which was super fun, and we'll see what happens. Got some cucumbers coming. It's I very much enjoy. I don't particularly have I don't really care what grows.
Mhm.
It's a bit of a volunteer garden. We just throw some compost in there, and whatever comes out
Is it in
each
your
year.
yard,
And
or do you go to a place?
I in our yard. I built sort of a little raised bed. Really easy to do, and then just planted some stuff, and what happens happens. It's kind of fun.
You and my wife are like the same but different. She has done the same out front. There was this patch of land that has some dead rose bushes on it, so she took it upon herself. Even though they asked us not to do this, she went out in our garden anyway and made a garden. And she's not growing any food stuff, but she's got she got some sunflowers out there. She got some hostas. She's got some tulip things she likes. I don't know. It's pretty. She's got a couple garden gnomes. She's really enjoying herself, and I am enjoying that she's enjoying that. So yeah, Keith, that transitions me to what I wanted to quickly talk about is a book I've been reading, and it's by Rick Rubin. You might know the cat, co-founder of Def Jam Records, one of the most sought after and prolific producers of our time. And he wrote a book, and it is called the Creative Act, A Way of Being. It's sort of it is not a biography in any way. It is more of a waxing on observations he's made about creativity by working with some of the geniuses of our time musically. But what I love about this book is it's also kind of a Buddhist philosophy. It's very Zen. It is presented in no specific order. It's just kind of like a collection of observations he's made. And some are very general. There's a lot of like conflicting information that'll be like, surround yourself with abundance of creative ideas and just like do a gajillion things. Or sometimes it'll be like, you got to really focus. And I think that's kind of part and parcel with creativity. There are no rules.
And sometimes you need both.
Yes, and so this is just like,
or either.
This sort of feels like, like a writing prompt type of book, that just like gives you a variety of things just as jumping off point, and that's what this is. It's beautifully presented. I recommend the hardbound copy as just like to have it around with you. But mostly the thing I wanted to bring up for today, because it lets everybody off the hook a little bit, is that creativity is not restricted. This is what it was saying, and I just really attached to it, is not restricted to artists, right, as we know them, musicians, writers, performers, actors. Creativeness, creativity is part and parcel to the human experience. Keith, you're out in your garden creating. You are being creative. How are you going to set up your vegetables? Well, what are you going to grow? How are you going to use them? If you are going to the store and shopping to make a meal, that selection, that process of creating, there's abundance of creativity and ideas floating at all times. And so, I've been getting a couple Marco Polos from various friends who are a lot of people going through a rough time right now because the rules of casting is changing, the landscape of the creative arts is changing, and that can feel stifling because you're used to the old way, or perhaps your place in a particular art might be changing or shifting. All of that is scary, but it does not mean that we are precluded from being creative beings. There's a ton of things you can be doing. And so get on doing. And if you need some help ideating or generating or just feeling a little better, I can't higher recommend The Creative Act, A Way of Being. It's by Rick Rubin. You can get it on your Kindle. You can get it from the bookstores. It's everywhere. You should check it out. Or get a copy for a friend who's going through a tough time. That's my weekly rad.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like we both have been struggling trying to be creative people our entire lives to various levels of success. I remember hearing a lot of people talking when I was young that the greatest reward to creativity is the creation, is the actual, it's the work, it's the creation, and that the success level of it is not actually the real reward. And I thought, no, no, I want to be successful. I want to get a show to Broadway. I want to be on Broadway. I want to make money. I want to do all these things, and that none of this really has a point unless it achieves the objective. And I think, I don't know, 20 something years doing this, I think I've turned into the person saying, yes, that's great. Yes, strive for that. Yes, I still want that. Yes, that is a big part of the dream,
Mhm.
but I'm now really appreciating what it is that I really like about art, about creating. It's the creation.
Mhm.
It's the coming up with an idea and putting it on paper and throwing it into Pro Tools and creating the hat. And yes, do I hope someday to make money with that? Yes, but it's not quite the thing that gets me up in the morning and gets me excited. It's what gets me up in the morning and gets me excited is there's an idea, let me create it. I'm going to make a thing that there was never a thing, whatever the medium is. And I'm like, wait, that is the reward. And that the life that I have led that has enabled me to do that and follow that as hard, and just like charge forward with the creation has actually been pretty great.
Well,
And
the
I have no regrets.
The lens that I've gained and continue to gain, and this book actually points out, is that it goes both ways, right? So yes, as a creative, one, you might not be able to carve out an economic path in your chosen thing. But the skill set, that creative access you have, and the freedom of emotional expression and all of the goodness, intangibles that creating generates inside of you as a human person, yes, does translate to many other types of work, where you can bring them to any type of work and make yourself a better person, a better insert job here, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa. People who find themselves in very 9-to-5 or rote type patterns and they're feeling a little stagnant in life, you don't need to all of a sudden become an opera singer, but maybe you want to take some singing lessons or start coloring. Right. Or my mom just has a coloring book and just it's a thing she does. It's a way she kind of gets out ideas, and guess what? That's all good stuff.
And I think that we've put a value system on the success or fame or money part of it, and I mean, yes, of course I want all that. I desperately want all of that, but I have bookshelves behind me of stuff that I have created thinking that I was trying to do that. That will never be that. It'll never be that. But I look at it so differently now. That musical I wrote, which will go nowhere. What a beautiful life experience of learning and growing and enjoying and dreaming I had while creating it, that I don't feel like it's a failure at all, even though it didn't achieve part of what I wanted to accomplish. I accomplished something even better than that.
A lot of amazing things on this channel I'm really proud of. The Out of Practice podcast, which we finished. We watched every episode. We did what we set out to do, which, doesn't have the views or the listens that we a lofty predicted, but I'm proud of it nonetheless. But the thing I'm most proud of, and I won't drop any names because we haven't run it by anybody, but there was a person who wrote us an email, I think when we were doing that show, and said, "Hey, I have this idea for a podcast. And I've been watching you guys, and you're making me think you're so shitty. Even I could do it." That's not what they said. But regardless, anyway, 2 weeks ago, we got a follow-up email from this person. They said, "Hey, I said I was thinking about it. I did it. I made a podcast and sent the link. And I don't know, it filled me with the fact that somehow our presence gave somebody the courage to go on and create is
several. That's
JD's channel's blowing up, and he's really enjoying himself. And I don't want to take credit for that, but just seeing people we've interacted with continue to do it and to push it, I think is just awesome. The little community we've cultivated, patrons and viewers alike, it's all creation and it's all good stuff that the world is. My life, at least, forget the world. My life is a little bit better because of it, and that's creation. So get creative, friends, this summer. There's still time. And when I say this every week, it sounds a little rote, but it's part of all of that. Do not let anyone yuck your yum. All right? So keep on doing the things you find fun. Keith and I will support you every step of the way. We'll have more recommendations for you next week. Until next week, keep on geeking on.